video is sort of a segue into one of the things that struck me about Everwood when I went back to prepare for this panel was the incredible guest stars that were on that show. I made a list off the top of my head. Maybe you guys can help, because apparently I'm good at skipping people. Anne Heche, Scott Wolf, Charles Durney, James Earl Jones, Bo Bridges, Kate Mara in episode 20, Marcia Cross, Sarah Lancaster, Mike Irwin. Who else? I mean, it's just Betty White, Crystal Bell. I mean, it was just Philip Baker Hall. Absolutely. Feel free to grab the mic and chime in. I just felt like that was such an sort of an homage to the quality of the show. Please. Jane Krakowski, that's right. Rena, yeah, you guys probably, I mean, Rena and Greg, I mean, tell them a little bit about how that works. If you, did you say this is an actor I want to go get, or how did it work?
Jane was the first big guest star we got, and it was because we were ahead enough on the script, and Vanessa Taylor, who was one of the writers, who's gone on to write for things like Game of Thrones, as a wonderful writer, she wrote our 5th episode, and we sent it to Jane Krakowski, and she read it, and she just wanted to be the shrink. It was working with the Abbotts, the traveling shrink. We also, who was it that played the mechanic slash fortune teller? J.K. Simmons. Yeah.
J.K. Simmons, right?
No, but a lot of times it was the actors that we already had on the show. There wasn't an actor in TV at the time that we were on the air. They didn't care if it was a WB, ABC, CBS. They wanted to work with the actors that we had on the show, and that was always our secret weapon. And they saw anytime we sent a cut, and they watched an episode of the show, and they saw the kind of people that they'd get to come be in scenes with. Betty White was another example. They didn't care what we paid them. They just cared about they wanted to come be a part of the experience, and that's what made it great. That's what made us fortunate.
Well, and for me to have a chance to work with Betty White, you know, I mean, that was amazing to have her as my mother-in-law. You know, that's a one side. And she was amazing. At one point I was sitting next to her and I was talking to my mom, and she took the phone and had a chat with my mom. Which, if my mother could remember things, would be one of her happiest memories. But also just the experience, I remember doing one of the scenes in the mine with James Earl Jones, and finishing a cut where I was like climbing over him because his arm was trapped or something, and that voice of his saying, "Someone's knee was in my crotch." And it was mine. But the other thing was, I think guest stars knew that you guys wrote incredible stuff. I mean, my wife Nancy Everhart played Coma Boy's mom. And I think one of her, oh come on, that's what we all call her. Was that insensitive? But seriously, I mean, that was such a thrill for her to have that, but I remember the scene, and I think it was some of the finest work that she ever did, and didn't say a word when she cut his hair. Just unbelievable. And that's all about the setup. That's all about the relationships being set up over time, and you guys did that so well. I think, you know, the guest cast that I've talked to that was on that show, they were just so happy to have that, because you don't always get that in the guest cast world. It's rare.
Thank you, Tom. Yes, Stephanie.
I have to speak up for my ex-husband who cheated on me. Dylan Walsh. He was amazing. I just remember his surprised look on his face when he returned. And he was cheating on me, that was established, but he was like, "Oh, I'm gay." Okay. He was us.
Well, that's a good segue into...
Who was the guy with the bear in Thanksgiving Day?
John Savage, that's right. The bear guy, that's right. The show did tackle a lot of themes that were incredibly, what's the word? Not provocative, but it pushed the envelope thematically in a lot of ways. I mean, you think about, you know, you had a gay kid coming out, you had an interracial marriage, you had abortion stories, you had medical stories where in the writing room we always would sort of say, what's the most outrageous thing we can do? So thematically taking on these themes, how did it affect you guys? Did it ever feel like it was a burden, or did it feel like it was something that was good?
I think, I just think what was so wonderful about the way that the show tackled all these issues is that it led to in-depth conversation. I remember, as opposed to just being there to shock people, be like, oh, look what they did on that show. Yeah, that really pushed the envelope. It was no. I mean, mothers and daughters and fathers and sons would sit down and watch the show, and then you could watch that entire abortion episode. That was my favorite. I mean, I wasn't on the show yet at the time, but I remember watching that show and being so blown away by the writing of it. And you could watch it as someone who's pro-life, and you could watch it as someone who's pro-choice, and decide that show was speaking, like, was voicing your opinion, because it showed both sides so incredibly well, and it just led to really deep conversation, which not a lot of shows can do. It was a privilege.
I have to totally agree with you. That was when I really knew Everwood was the incredible honor it was, when people would stop me on the street, and most often it was mothers saying, thank you so much for the show, because I can talk to my children. We can both watch the show. We both feel that we are the cool ones. And we can have an honest discussion. You know, both sides of the story were told with intelligence and valor, really. I thought it was great.
Great. Gregory, do you play piano?
Can I answer that?
Can I answer that? No, I don't. You know, occasionally I would learn a very, very, very small, amount of the beginning of a song, so that the camera can sort of start on my hand and come up and see my face. But usually, what would happen was I would be standing at the. Can you hold the mic? So I'm playing, Chopin or something, but my hands are back here.
Thank you. Adam, let's roll treat.
Hi, my name is Treat Williams, and I played Dr. Andy Brown on Everwood. And